Hi, everyone. I'm John Kenlon, Senior Vice President at Ensemble IQ and publisher of Drugstore News. Welcome to our ongoing Q&A series discussing how retail pharmacy is evolving into a healthcare destination. We're with Todd Sega today, CEO at PQS. Todd, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks. Great to be here. Glad to be part of the series.
Yeah, so are we. Before we get into the questions, can you give us a brief overview of PQS today?
Yeah, sure. So we are a technology company quite focused on healthcare quality improvement. And within the pharmacy space, we're very focused on the quality of medication use. And we really serve as a neutral third party between payers and community pharmacies to measure the value and quality of medication use, and really serve as that intermediary to help patients get the best outcomes, and also act as the foundation for various value-based reimbursement strategies between payers and community pharmacies. And we actually end up having about 95% of all community pharmacies who we contract with and engage on the platform. And then we have about 9 out of every 10 Medicare lives from the health plans and some PBMs that we've contracted with to also expose their data and to have us serve as that neutral third-party role. So quite a bit of marketplace connectivity between our payer segment as well as our pharmacy partners.
Excellent. So you sit right in the middle and can help each of them. Tell us why you came out with the new platform, Equip Now.
Yeah, sure. So some of what I mentioned in the background, Equip has really been foundational in helping pharmacy shift towards quality measurement and performance. And it's just been remarkable to see the progress that pharmacies have made over the last 5 or 6 years, even though we've really been out in the market for coming up on 9, almost 10 years. But the last 5 or 6, we've seen quite a bit of exponential change. And while the core of Equip continues to be foundational to supporting our mission and purpose in healthcare, the technology has also changed drastically since we first launched. And both pharmacies and payers are asking for more because they want to and are ready to do more. So we've listened and found that this was the right time to re-architect Equip on a new technology platform that allows us to be more agile and support more rapid innovation, where pharmacists and their teams could have more enhanced care opportunities, much of what you mentioned with this series. And they've really been previously assigned to these primary care teams, and we see pharmacy changing and impacting that space quite a bit. So our speed to develop new features combined with other technologies to handle the larger scale of data that we have coming in is now ready for the near and distant future, a position that we were excited to be in to drive more value. So those were really the underpinnings of why we drove to relaunch the platform and rebuild it.
So tell us a little bit more about the user experience and how is Equip different from other healthcare improvement companies?
Yeah, sure. I'll highlight a few. There are, of course, a number of enhancements and new features that we built into the new application. So I'll just highlight a couple of them. And most of them are based on user feedback. So we tried to listen more than anything to hear about what our customers and end users are really looking for. And while some are related to future areas, for some goals and things that we'll be focused on, one of the top requests has really just been on viewing their entire population. Since we are managing quality measures, historically, we've been sharing just those who fell through the cracks because that was where you could keep your focus. There was a lot on their plate, and it really wasn't as much about the prospective view of what they need to work on. So now we show them their full population. When a user goes in to interact with what we call the denominator or the qualifying population for a quality measure, they're now met with all of the patients, whether they're meeting the intent of the measure or not. So we make it really clear to them which patients may not require action, but in advance, you may want to do something to prevent some patient from becoming non-compliant, if it's an adherence measure as an example, so that they can be a little bit more preventative about the efforts that they make. We also have a new feature where individuals can click on a particular patient in the dashboard, and we sort of fly out and show the user all of the other quality measures that same patient has been qualifying for, So it prevents different individuals in the pharmacy, if it's tasked up that particular technicians are focused on hypertension measures versus diabetes measures, they all get to see which patients are qualifying for other measures, so they can have one conversation with the patient, whether it's in the store or over the phone, so they can be, again, a little bit more prospective and let them know that they see that they're also taking this other medication, that they're doing very well at taking on time and as scheduled versus others that may have not. The other thing that we've enabled is more flexibility and features to customize the dashboard. Different pharmacy groups may have different focuses on certain measures in different performance programs. So we allow users to sort of click and drag around their performance measures. It's a lot more modular and tiled so that they can put the priority in the areas that really matter for them and where those priorities are. So those are just a couple of the enhancements with more of the UX or the user experience side of things. But what really I'd say to get to your second question is what sets us apart and a little bit more different than other healthcare improvement companies really come down to the roots that I mentioned in the brief background of who our organization is. But that foundational element of our roots, where we were created to prevent a problem in the pharmacy space that had actually existed for other providers in terms of misaligned data, lack of transparency, and having to go to multiple platforms for needed data. Those were the problems that really existed in the provider space, the physician space, for quite some time. And as payers and providers continue to shift away from fee-for-service towards more value-based reimbursement, where that reimbursement is very closely tied to performance metrics, organizations in the industry saw an incredible value to have a neutral third party that sits in the middle between payers and providers, so that there's one place to go to for pharmacies to see how they're performing for multiple payers. And they also get some confidence knowing that the calculations are done the same way, no matter if it's payer A, B, or C. So that consistency helps with the process, but also having the technology to create some efficiencies for pharmacies as well, since each pharmacy group may have a different dispensing system. They may have different operating procedures for how they like to channel patient targets or clinical targets. So we sort of adapt to that, and it gives payers one spot to go to channel out to that very broad network that I mentioned, which is close to 95% of all community pharmacies. So that efficiency adds value for both pharmacies and payers. And again, having calculations done the same way in a consistent fashion in one location really makes a key difference as well for some of what makes us different. And then lastly, it's just the team that we have. We're a pretty mission-driven team, and we're made up of pharmacists and pharmacy operation experts. We have data analytics experts, and then technology members now that we've rebuilt that technology in-house, so that the payers who come to us know that they can trust us as a partner to provide calculations, manage very large data sets, and then distribute that performance across the vast majority of network retail community pharmacies. And then they also trust us for unbiased insights in what works and what doesn't work from a program standpoint, and what they need to consider as they evolve their programs and value-based reimbursement programs into the future. So those are just a handful of what we would say are probably differentiators for us.
Yeah, that's at least a handful. That's comprehensive, and it's ambitious. When you think about next year, are there can you share with us some of the major goals that PQS has identified for 2023?
Yeah, sure. We have a number of goals that we're focused on, and we'd like to refine them so that we can keep that focus. But there's a lot of discussion, I'd say, in the industry about how pharmacists are accessible and a great potential extension to primary care. But what's unclear to us is how the marketplace is actually going to get there and make a measurable change in turning this belief into more of a recognized reality. And that's where we sort of anchor into our past experience, and where we think PQS comes into that sort of next vision reality, is that we've been there since the beginning to support pharmacy quality measurement and those improvement efforts. And over the years, we've really deepened our expertise beyond quality measurement and managing large data sets. So we really understand the value that retail pharmacy has to this group of providers and how they can support quality measurement, and a lot of measures that have been predominantly tied to that primary care prescriber, mid-level prescriber setting. So these opportunities haven't really been widely presented to pharmacies in the past, and we think this is a new way for pharmacy to be engaged more so into patient care, unlike they have in the past. So one of our goals is to support a clear path for pharmacists and their care teams to support patient care gaps and evolve the nature of their relationship with payers to be even more one of value-based reimbursement. So to help support this new avenue, we've really supported our core competencies, the number of measures that we host in the platform, and that involves into the HEDIS measurement space, a space that really hasn't touched pharmacy historically, but we're bringing that new type of HEDIS measurement and ability for pharmacies to close those care gaps to payers, and that's relatively new. So that's really another area for us, is to bring some new innovative programs to the market that relate to our core expertise in being that neutral third party, as well as the measurement in the HEDIS space that we bring as well. So that's sort of the big overarching goal. But I'd say the last goal I'd highlight really relates to the new feature that I also mentioned, to think prospectively and to bring in some more predictive analytics to knowing who might not be adherent, who might not meet the intent of a quality measure, and bring in some of that new detail and historical data into making future predictive decision making as well. So those are just two overarching domains that we think we can add a lot of value for both of our partners in the upcoming year ahead.
No, I agree. We just came from a conference with a lot of leading community pharmacy retailers, and they spoke a lot about practicing at the top of your license. They spoke a lot about how to make retail pharmacy convenient, affordable, accessible, how to get the pharmacists out there and utilize their expertise, which they demonstrated so well during COVID with test and treat, and really going above and beyond. So I guess any way that we can enhance their ability to do that, the better. So our audience always appreciates a kind of a peek around the corner. So can you just tell us a little bit about what could be next for Equip? And then how do you see quality in patient care evolving over, let's say, the next year or so?
Yeah, that's one I could certainly discuss for quite some time. So I'll keep some of the points just pretty high level, but quite simply, we believe that pharmacy will be presented with more opportunities to serve roles in the primary care space. And it's not a territorial thing to take anything from those in primary care, but really being able to augment that care like never before. And I think where we're well positioned to help that belief that we have of what the future looks like really relates to quality measurement, and especially the quality measures that we believe are very ripe for pharmacist support and engagement. A lot of those measures have never really been thought of as something that can be influenced by those in the community pharmacy setting, and we're shedding a lot of light on that opportunity and have been for the last few months, that we'll see carrying into next year. So we think that this allows pharmacy to showcase its ability to more meaningfully support and collaborate with physicians and those mid-level providers. And this will really help open up the role for how pharmacists can be a better partner to those in the primary care space. And this is going to unlock more reimbursement-based opportunities for pharmacies as well, for what we can quantify and show as meaningful improvement on these quality measures that we're hosting that historically haven't been really brought down or shared with community pharmacies. Because the typical relationships have really been about drug shortages, dose changes, prior authorizations, and refill requests. I think those things probably characterize most of what other prescribers or some payers think of as it relates to the role of community pharmacy. Obviously, the relationships they have, improving patient care, but in terms of the day-to-day items that people think of, those are more traditional. But thinking about getting point of care tests, having follow-up conversations with the pharmacist on where blood pressure results are falling, and how does that align with treatment goals? Does this blood pressure make sense with how you're taking the medication? If you're taking it well, don't have many side effects, Maybe there's time for a dosage change. So we're going to see a lot more conversation with patients and pharmacists that typically haven't been as clinical, because pharmacists largely haven't had access to a lot of A1C data for patients with diabetes, or knowing routinely what someone's blood pressures have been over time. But now with pharmacists playing a more active role in that space, you're going to see them, to your point, practice at the top of their license, because now they can actually have a more meaningful conversation about whether a medication or a dose is appropriate for consulting with the prescriber based upon trends, since the pharmacist is going to be a little bit more active in their care because of the quality measures that are going to be brought down to them.
Yeah, that's interesting. At the same event I attended last week, a senior executive from a very large national pharmacy chain had said, look, we're not here to take any responsibility or work away from the medical community. We're here to complement, we're here to enhance. And it sounds to me like what PQS is doing is you're making it easier to do that and to do it well.
That's 100% correct. And we actually see quite a bit of opportunity there in conversations with the prescriber community. Next year, as we can help showcase this, what we found is many of these prescribers are in value-based programs with the same payer that the pharmacy is, but both of them don't know they're in the same value-based sort of structure. So we see it as a really strong opportunity and a requirement almost for us in our role to help both of those sides work a little bit better together, because when they work better together, patients can get better outcomes. And now you have better alignment of value-based programs and they aren't as siloed. And we 100% see pharmacies stepping up to do that. But you can't really measure that unless you have some sort of a quality measure or something that ties back to something of demonstrable value. And that's sort of the role that we put a giant spotlight on.
Yeah, and if you don't have that, it's as if it never happened these days.
That's right.
Everybody
Exactly.
wants the data. Well, listen, Todd Sega, CEO at PQS, thank you so much. This was terrific. Let's do it again and update some reports on the progress that you're making, and we'll talk some more next year.
All right. Sounds great.
All right.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.